Hello and welcome back to Marketing 404's Crossing the Chasm mini-series. Before we get cracking with the third episode, I just wanted to do a quick recap on what we've covered to date. So far in this series, we've examined the various psychological profiles that are apparent within the technology adoption lifecycle, and we've explored why marketers should focus on business metrics and not MQLs. But today we're going to discuss how B2B tech organizations can build a communication strategy that appeals to the mass market, an episode which builds on some of the concepts Scott and I have discussed in our original podcast series. And without wanting to give away too many spoilers at the start, at its core, it's quite simple. The secret sauce? Don't be a can, can I say don't? Maybe I'll edit that bit out. To put a more positive spin on this, we rise by lifting others. The good guy always wins, as Disney constantly proves. Take Gaston, for example. What a douche. I know he technically didn't start the song where they're all singing his praises, but he sure didn't need any encouragement to join in, did he? And you just know, if you ever met him at some fancy networking event, the type with vol au vents and canapes served on silver platters, he'd spend the entire time talking about his recent family ski trip to Aspen and why you absolutely must send your kids to private school, despite the cost, even though you only asked him if he knew where the toilets were. Don't be that guy. Great marketing starts with your customer, not you. However, to spin that analogy on its head and to backtrack faster than someone who's advised an entire country that bleach is an effective treatment for coronavirus, we still do need to be Gaston. At the start, anyway, many B2B tech companies will experience an initial period of success talking product and pitching up at events, and this boils down to the technology adoption lifecycle analogy we discussed in the first episode. Before targeting the early majority, we really need to hoover up those innovators and early adopters. People who get their kicks from staying ahead of the game and playing with new shiny toys. People who don't necessarily need a thorough business case to get up and running with new software. The types of people who were first in line for 3D televisions, segways, and those Minority Report style Google Glass thingies. However, as with most things in life, all good things must come to an end, and the early adopters and innovators of this world will soon dry up. So, if you're listening to this podcast, and despite the fact your sales and marketing budget has never been so big, and the only thing you have to show for it is a spiraling customer acquisition costs, follow me. So the mass market, how do we appeal to those guys? Well, the first thing we need to do is forget about leads and MQLs. We need to push all that marketing data aside for a second and just focus on being more human. You can't backwards engineer brilliance. You can't backwards engineer empathy. Instead, we're going to pour all that effort into helping your ICP be the best damn whatever it is they do they can be, all while positioning your product as an enabler to that success. But where do you begin? Well, you start with the customer. And unfortunately, what I'm about to say is by no means easy and will probably push you outside your comfort zone. But if you put these hard yards in up front, the benefits will pay back exponentially. And what is the best way to understand your customer? Talk to them. Hopefully, there's a few champion customers on your books who use your product the way your CEO always intended. So talk to them. Find out what real issues you solve. This will stop you falling into the trap of rolling your product into disgustingly bland business benefits. You know the ones: time, money, and resource savings. The same benefits everyone else is pushing, and something I know I've been massively guilty of in the past. And for some tangible practical advice and to see how this eventually plays out, go check out a video Josh Braun did with Chris Walker. It's called Top of Funnel Outreach and Marketing. Both Josh and Chris give some great advice on how you can get under the skin of your prospect and in the long run have people knocking on your door rather than having to knock on their door to win new business. To add some colour to this, I thought I'd dig out an example Scott and I mentioned in an earlier podcast. But before I do, and make sure you remember this because this is absolutely key, only 3% of your ICP is ever in purchase mode. And if you're not in conversation with your ICP before they decide they're ready to purchase, well, they're naturally going to gravitate towards the brands that help spur the demand rather than the companies that try and swoop in at the last minute. Anyway, that example. And because you shouldn't reinvent the wheel, more on this later, funnily enough, I'm going to borrow the same one we mentioned in our Content Marketing 101 episode. So, in this episode, Scott talked about how a software company, let's say a generic lead management tool, can eventually win the hearts and minds of CMOs by positioning the tool as an enabler for success rather than focusing on product. So, how might this play out? Well, imagine you're the CMO of a generic tech company. Which of these two articles are you most likely to read? Number one, CMOs have the shortest tenure of all C suite execs. Here's how you can outlast your peers. Or two, X awesome features now available on our platform. I know it's a little contrived and easy to say into a microphone from my tiny home office, but the fact I too am a marketer means I can hone in on what's important to them. You can only really start to create truly sticky content if you know the customer. Of course, because our job as marketers is to help sell, we can then use this blog as a platform to allude to our product and our solution type. But as long as there's a bunch of genuinely useful information inside, the prospect will leave with a favorable impression of the brand, someone they might look out for in the future, someone they might read content from. Um, One of the big problems, though, with content is that it's mightily difficult to prove ROI. So many organizations give up after their first 3 blogs don't yield any results and instead turn their attention back to things they can understand. Cause and effect marketing, which ironically has very little effect. So be smart, spin your content into different content pieces. A good place to start would be to launch a podcast with your CEO and customers. Um, your marketing team can then spin this into all manner of content, sound bites, infographics, videos, blogs, you name it. It's also worth noting here that teams with in-house capability will probably be better equipped to operate at pace. So make of that what you will. Also, remember SEO is a marathon, not a sprint. And I'll go into greater detail on this in a later episode, but it takes time for Google to accept that you're a trusted advisor in a particular field. Google wants to see a lot of content on a concentrated topic if you're ever to climb the rankings. But equally, remember, SEO does not equal inbound. Once you've produced all this juicy content, get it out there. Get people engaging with your brand, your messages, and if the ideas stick and resonate, they'll soon be back on your website eyeing up demos and free trial requests. A final quick tip I thought I'd throw in here: video. Video is by far and away one of the best vehicles to get people engaging with your content. Sure, it takes a little bit more time, but quickly scroll down your LinkedIn feed and you'll see that the posts that usually get the most engagement are video updates. It's great for SEO too. So to summarize this third episode, number one, don't be like Gaston. The good guy always wins. Number two, do get your content out there. Inbound isn't a case of publishing a few blogs and watching the leads roll in. Three, don't measure good content on ROI. You'll only end up getting disappointed. Don't reinvent the wheel. This is point 4, by the way. Chop up content into various forms. Sprinkle a bit of video in if you can. Well, I can see I'm running out of time, so if this has whetted the appetite for more podcasts, check out our previous episodes via marketing404.com. This will redirect you to our YouTube channel. And if I do say so myself, Content Marketing 101 and the 5 pillars of SEO will be some nice complementary content to what we've discussed today. But for now, thank you for listening, and I hope you'll join me for the next one. Bye bye. Take care.